Hi there, welcome to today's video. I'm Jeanette with Vivo Vintage Designs. If you're new to my channel, welcome. I'm glad you're here. On this channel, we learn alcohol ink, watercolor, and other creative art projects together. All right, now that that's out of the way, let's get started. Hello friends and welcome to today's video. Today we're going to have some fun making ghosts with air dry clay. You can see here I've taken a spice jar, then crumbled a ball of aluminum foil, placed it on top, and then I used plastic wrap to keep it in place. If you can find a better way of doing this, let me know in the comments. But I'm going to use that to drape my clay over to dry. And so I'm going to start with the Crayola air dry clay, and you can use any air dry clay you have on hand. I have the Crayola and Jovi. So first I'm going to start by kneading my clay, and you can see I have some parchment paper underneath. I'm using a tube of caulk to roll it. I like a rolling pin because I still can't find mine. So I want to make sure that I get it an even thickness. So I rolled for a while. This clay was a little hard, so I did add a little bit of water to it, but eventually I got it. Now once I got it to the thickness and the shape that I wanted, I tried to smooth out some of the marks in it, which was to no avail because later on I got my fingernail marks all over it, but it didn't matter. They're still adorable, and you'll see that at the end. So I used a little bit of water to smooth it. Now I'm going to drape it over that little spice jar, and I'm going to push the clay in to make the folds in the ghost, but I'm going to center it better. And you can see I'm just pinching in those little creases and getting the shape that I like. Now I'm taking a brush with a little bit of water and I'm trying to smooth out the marks that I made with my fingernails. And trying to get those folds nice and even, or as even as I could. I don't think there's really anything right or wrong on doing this. However the folds come out will be perfect. So I continue to smooth using just a little bit of water on an old brush. Once I was finished, I took a dotting tool and I started to make little openings for the eyes and the mouth. Then again, I use the brush to smooth it out a little bit. And then I put it aside to dry. Now for this next one, I'm going to use the Jovi clay, air dry clay. And this one I wanted to make a little bit bigger, so I took out a nice chunk, I would say about half of the block. And again, knead it to make sure you remove any air pockets. I'm adding a little bit of water to soften it up a little bit. And now I'm going to roll it out. This is a fun little project for Halloween to make with your children or grandchildren. Once I got it to as big as I wanted and as the desired thickness, because you want to make sure that it's not too thin, but you don't want it too thick either. I think mine was about 1/4 of an inch thick. If you make it too thin, it can fall apart. If you make it too thick, it can crack as it dries. So I would say that mine is about 1/4 of an inch or so thick. All right, I think that's big enough. So for this one, I decided that I was going to use a lid to, I don't know, I think maybe it was coffee or something, and use that as a guide to cut out cut out my circle. And here I'm just trying to smooth it out. But again, you don't even have to work this hard. It'll all come together in the end. So I'm using the dotting tool, and I want my ghost to be a little bit bigger. So I'm just using the lid as a guide for the circle that I'm cutting out. Again, smoothing the clay with a little bit of water on my hand. And this is really messy, so make sure that you have some towels or something to wipe your hands with, because that clay will dry on your hands. So now I've laid it over my little spice jar, and I'm making the little folds. And I found it wasn't centered, and you want to center it as best you can because you want it to be able to stand on its own. So I had a hard time making the eyes for this one, the eyes and the mouth. So you can see I kept playing with it, but eventually I got it, and it turned out really cute. You'll see at the end of the video, I'm posting a little video of what they look like when they're lit. Because you take those little battery operated tea lights and you place it underneath the ghost, and the light shines through the eyes and the mouth. Really, really cute. So again, I did post a video of what they look like when they're lit and displayed in my living room. So again, here I'm using the brush to smooth out the clay, and you can see I'm still having problems with those eyes and that mouth. I think I fiddled with it much more than I needed to. Alright, so once I was happy with the shape of it, I put it aside to dry. Okay, this is 2 days later, and they're finally dry, and they look really cute. But of course, I'm going to paint them. I don't like that color. You can leave it this color if you like. And I could see that I had a little bit of clay in the openings that I created, so I just used the dotting tool to push out that little bit of clay. And you can see I have some sandpaper on my table there, and I'm going to use that to smooth out any surfaces that I think need a little smoothing out, which was really only the mouth and the eyes. So in order to make it fit into the eye, what I did was I took the sandpaper and I rolled it up and I stuck it in the opening, and I was able to smooth out the eyes. And if you have any surfaces that are rough or too lumpy, you can use the sandpaper to smooth them out. Just make sure that you wear a mask or that you do this outdoors. You don't want to breathe in this clay. I don't know how harmful it is, but I know I don't want to breathe it in. So here I have some inexpensive craft paint, and I decided I'm going to keep my ghosts on the little spice jars because that will make it easier to paint. And these are the little tea lights that I'll be using underneath each one of the ghosts. So first I started with just using the paint straight out of the bottle, but I found that it was very transparent. It wasn't really covering very well. And I remembered watching a video with another artist who said that if you take like cornstarch and add it to your craft paint, that it will thicken it up and make it cover better. So that's what I did. I grabbed my what is this, baking powder? I'm not even sure what this is. Cornstarch? I think it's cornstarch. And I added it to the paint. And that seemed to work pretty well. It gave me better coverage. I did have to do 2 coats. And of course, I waited about an hour in between coats. And I realized I needed more paint, so I added more cornstarch. Is it cornstarch? I can't even tell. It is. There's a picture of corn on the bottle, on the jar. And I added more paint, and I mixed it up, and that gave me enough paint to do 2 coats on each of the ghosts. Okay, here both of my ghosts are dry, but I decided that I didn't want them to look so plain. I wanted them to look like more, I wanted to do something folk artsy on it. So I grabbed my Artex acrylic paint pen. And I also had another water-based marker that I used, and I wanted to do something similar to that picture that you saw there on my phone. So I started drawing some little flowers and some vines and leaves all over these little ghosts, and using the Artex paint pens worked really well. It was very easy to do this. And then the marker that I used later on was a really fine tip. However, I found that as I was sealing the painting, that the finer marker did a little bit of running. And at first I thought I had ruined it, but later I realized that when you see those porcelain dishes, the paint or ink that they use to paint the blue on it, it usually bleeds out into the porcelain. And that is the same look that I achieved with this marker that started to bleed. And I really like the way it turned out. So I'm just going to go around and add different little flowers. You can see these are really simple little flowers that I'm adding. Some are lines, some are the petals are just lines, and others I made look more like petals. And I made little flowers using little dots. Very simple. And of course, you can use any color you like. I just really liked this blue. And you can add any type of pattern that you like. If you choose to do this, you can just leave them white and they're cute just like that. But if you're familiar with my videos, you know that I always have to do more. So I'm just going to go around each one of these little ghosts and fill it in with little flowers and little stems and leaves. And then once I was finished filling this one in with this blue marker, of course, it didn't look like it was enough. So what I did was I created little dots. I painted little dots around the bottom of the ghost. And in my opinion, that really finished it off. So real simple, just little dots all the way around. It's looking adorable already. So this is that fine liner that I happened to find. I don't even know who makes it. And I decided to add some little dots around the eyes as well. And then later for the second ghost, I used it to create the stems. And it gave me finer stems for the leaves than the broader marker did. Okay, here they are, both painted. And I think they look absolutely adorable. And I'm going to use the Mod Podge Glossy. You can use the matte if you like. I just wanted them to be a little bit shiny. And as I started to paint, you can see here I'm hesitating because I noticed that the fine liner was kind of reactivating when I put the Mod Podge over it. So what I decided to do, so that I didn't smear the entire flower or leaf that I painted, was I started to dab the Mod Podge on those areas so it didn't blur and smear too much, and that seemed to work. So I did do 2 coats of the Mod Podge, and there were areas where the bleeding was, the blue paint was coming onto the brush and it was spreading it. So I took a paper towel and I would clean off my brush here and there so that I didn't pull that blue paint onto the rest of the ghost. So I let it dry, I would say probably, because I went upstairs and did other things, and then I came down and I added the second coat. So I probably let each coat dry for about 2 hours or so. But painting it was easy, and if you use a brush with long enough bristles, it's easy to get in between those folds as well. All the products used in this video will be linked in the description box just below. Please consider joining our Facebook group, Vivo Vintage Design Tutorials, where you can share your versions of the paintings and techniques learned on this channel. And I would really appreciate it if you would like, comment, or consider subscribing. Your interaction with my channel is really helpful, and it's a wonderful way to show your support. I really do appreciate it. So now we're near the end, so I'm going to share with you how I displayed them in my living room. This is how cute they turned out, and this is how they look with the lights off. I think the candle deterred from the light that they put out, but I think you get the idea. They're absolutely adorable. I love them. Well, thank you so much for watching. I hope you give this a try, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.